The unexpected arrival. Asterisk Kane opened his eyes slowly. Bright white lights shone down on him from a ceiling he did not know. His head felt heavy, and his mouth was dry when he tried to sit up. Metal cuffs pulled his arms back. Cold steel wrapped around his wrists and ankles. He looked around, carefully. The room was round and smooth, all metal and glass. He could see no windows, only sliding doors on the far side. A low hum filled the air, like machines breathing. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a slow breath. The last thing he remembered was fighting on a dusty planet. The sky had been orange with smoke, then a flash of blue light, a sharp pain in his spine, and darkness. Now he was here. Wherever here was. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Kane turned his head and saw someone step inside. She was tall, taller than any human woman he had met. Her skin was silver like polished stone. Her eyes were bright blue and cold. Her hair fell over her shoulders like liquid metal. She walked toward him without hurry, her boots making no sound on the smooth floor. When she stopped in front of him, she tilted her head as if studying an insect. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was soft, but there was no kindness in it. Kane didn't answer. He only watched her with calm eyes. "Do you know where you are?" she asked. He didn't speak. She smiled a little, but it was not a friendly smile. "You are in my arena," she said. "You will fight my best warriors." He closed his eyes again. Part of him had known this would happen. When aliens took a human alive, they did not do it to be merciful. "Are you afraid?" she asked. He opened his eyes and looked at her steadily. "No." She raised an eyebrow. "No, I was getting bored," he said simply. Her smile faded. She studied him in silence. Her blue eyes searched his face for fear, for panic. When she found nothing, she frowned slightly. "You humans are strange," she said at last. "You pretend to be brave when you should be begging." "I don't pretend," Kane said. The woman turned away and walked to a small console near the wall. She pressed her hand against a glowing panel. The cuffs around Kane's wrists and ankles unlocked with a soft click. He sat up slowly, rolling his shoulders to feel the tightness in his muscles. He looked around again, measuring the space. The woman watched him with interest. "You will have a few moments to stretch," she said. "Then the first challenge will begin." "How many are there?" Kane asked calmly. 10, she replied. "My 10 best warriors, each trained to kill in a different way." "Good," Kane said. "I like a fair fight." Her eyes narrowed. "You think this will be fair?" "It will be enough," he said. She studied him for another moment, then touched the console again. A low alarm sounded through the walls. The floor under Kane's feet began to vibrate. "The arena will open soon," she said. "If you survive the first challenge, we will talk again." He watched her walk away, the door closing behind her. Without a sound, for a moment, the room went still. The vibration in the floor grew stronger. Kane stood, stretching each arm and rolling his neck. Pain pulsed in his ribs, but he pushed it away. He had survived worse. A thin line of light appeared on the far wall. Metal panels began to slide apart, revealing a wide gate. Cold air rushed in, smelling of dust and oil. Beyond the gate, something moved. He could not see it clearly, only a huge shadow shifting from side to side. He felt his heart beat faster. Not fear, only readiness. He crouched slightly, planting his feet. He did not know what was coming, but he would not wait to be killed. The shadow moved closer. Claws scraped over the steel floor. The shape grew bigger, rising up until it nearly touched the ceiling. A deep, rumbling growl filled the air. The sound shook Kane's bones. He took one slow breath and let it out. This was the game she wanted. He would play it. The first challenge. Kane kept his eyes on the giant shape as it stepped through the wide gate. Bright white lights flashed on. Overhead, showing the creature in full. It stood twice as tall as a man. Thick scales covered its body like armor. Long claws scraped the floor when it walked. The golden eyes glowed in its reptile head. It looked part beast, part machine. Metal plates were fixed into its shoulders and spine. Blue lights blinked where the wires met flesh. The creature opened its jaws and let out a roar that shook the walls. Pieces of dust fell from the ceiling. Kane did not move. He felt his heart beat hard in his chest, but he kept his breath steady. Fear was only useful if you controlled it. High above, behind a glass wall, the silver-skinned woman stood, watching. Her bright blue eyes followed his every move. "This is my first warrior," her voice called over hidden speakers. "It was built to break you. Kane did not answer. He bent his knees slightly, lowering his center of gravity. He studied the creature's heavy steps, the way it leaned on his left side. Its right leg moved slower. Maybe an old injury or a weak spot. The creature stomped closer, lowering its head. Metal plates slid over its neck like a shield. It was smart, not just a beast. The crowd in the stands began to cheer. Kane could not see them clearly, but he heard them hundreds of voices calling for blood. He closed his eyes for a moment. He was not here for them. He was here to survive. The creature charged without warning. Its claws scraped sparks from the steel floor. Kane rolled to the side just before it struck. The force of its weight made the ground jump under his hands. He came up in a crouch and watched it turn. Its tail swung behind it, heavy and fast. He threw himself backward as it smashed into the floor, where he had been standing. The crowd roared. Louder. "You cannot run forever," the woman's voice said calmly. "It will crush you." Kane ignored her. He looked at the creature's leg again. When it stepped, he saw a small gap between the armor plates near the knee. He would have to get close, very close. The creature lunged again, faster this time. Kane ran toward it, surprising the crowd. He ducked under a swinging claw and slammed his fist into the weak spot in its leg. The creature bellowed in pain. It staggered, metal plates shifting. Blue liquid dripped onto the floor where he had struck it. "You see it, don't you?" the woman called, her voice sharper. "You see its weakness." Kane did not reply. He was already moving. He ran to the side as the creature turned, limping now. He needed one more good strike. The creature tried to stomp him. He rolled under its belly and came up behind its bad leg with all his strength. He kicked into the gap in the armor. The creature screamed. It fell onto one knee, clawing at the floor. Metal sparks flew in all directions. Kane breathed hard. Sweat ran down his neck. He took 3 steps back, watching carefully. The creature turned its head to look at him. Its golden eyes burned with rage. With a roar, it pushed itself up again. Kane knew it would not stop unless he ended it. He waited until it lunged again. This time, he ran straight at it, sliding under the swinging tail. He grabbed a loose piece of metal armor and pulled with everything he had. The plate ripped free, leaving the creature's wounded leg exposed. Blue liquid poured out in thick streams. The creature tried to roar again, but its voice cracked. It stumbled sideways and crashed to the floor. For a moment, the arena went silent. No one cheered. No one spoke. Kane stood over the fallen creature, breathing hard. His chest hurt from where it had thrown him earlier. His arms felt weak, but he was still standing. Slowly, the crowd began to cheer again. The voices rose, filling the air with noise. High above, the silver-skinned woman watched him with narrowed eyes. She touched her hand to the glass, as if trying to understand him. "Impressive," she said, her voice cold. But this was only the first. Kane looked up at her. His voice was quiet, but steady. "Send the next," he said. The gates began to open again. The ground shook as 2 more warriors stepped into the arena. Their bodies were thinner than the first creature's, but their arms ended in long blades. Their eyes glowed the same gold. Kane wiped sweat from his forehead and lifted his hands. He was tired. He was hurt, but he was ready. The second wave asterisk, the 2 new warriors stepped out of the shadows. Their bodies were thin and quick, built for speed. Their skin was dark gray and covered in small scales that shimmered under the bright lights. Long blades grew from their forearms. When they moved, the blades hummed with blue energy. Kane took a slow breath. His ribs still ached from the last fight. Sweat ran down his face and stung his eyes. He wiped it away and watched them carefully. High above, the silver-skinned woman stood behind the glass wall. Her bright blue eyes never looked away. "These are my twins," she called over the speakers. "They have trained together since birth. They think as one mind." Kane did not answer. He shifted his weight onto his back foot. He knew he could not fight them head-on. They were too fast. He would have to wait, watch, and look for a mistake. The twins moved to either side of him, spreading out like a net. One tapped the floor with a blade, making a high-ringing sound. The other tilted its head, studying him. Kane turned slowly, keeping both in his sight. His heart beat steady in his chest. He knew fear would only make him slower. "Surrender," the woman called. "You have proven your skill. There is no shame in yielding." Kane shook his head once. "I am not done," he said quietly. The woman's mouth curved into a thin smile. "As you wish." The twin on the left attacked first. It moved like water, smooth and silent. The blade sliced toward Kane's neck. He ducked under it and rolled to the side. Before he could stand, the second twin leapt forward, stabbing down with both blades. Kane threw himself backward. The blades struck the floor where his chest had been. Sparks flew. He came up on one knee, breathing hard. The twins turned to face him again, their eyes glowing bright. The crowd roared with excitement. They loved this seeing a human pushed to the edge. Kane ignored the noise. He watched the way the twins moved, always together, always in perfect balance. But in their balance, there had to be a pattern. If he could see it, he could break it. The twins circled him again. Their blades crossed in front of their chests. Then they charged at the same time. Kane ran toward the closest wall. He waited until the last second, then jumped. His boots hit the metal panel. He pushed off hard, flipping over their heads. The twins skidded to a stop. Turning in perfect sync, Kane landed behind them, grabbing a piece of broken armor from the first creature. It was heavy, almost too heavy to lift, but he raised it like a shield. The twins charged again. One aimed high, the other low. When they struck, Kane blocked the high blade with the armor plate. The force drove him to one knee. The second blade cut across his leg. He hissed in pain, but held his ground. With all his strength, he twisted the armor plate and slammed it into the nearest twin's head. The creature staggered back, its blade dropping. In that instant, the other twin moved to protect it. Kane saw the opening he needed. He dropped the armor plate and grabbed the wounded twin by the throat. Before the second twin could stop him, Kane threw the first into its partner. Both crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs and blades. The crowd gasped. Kane stepped back, breathing hard. He knew they were not finished, but he had seen something important. They cared for each other. They were not machines. One twin rose first, blood dripping from a cut on its cheek. It looked at its partner, then at Kane. Its eyes burned brighter. They moved slower now. Hurt, but still dangerous. Kane picked up the broken armor again. He raised it like a shield and waited. The twins charged together, blades ready to strike. At the last moment, Kane threw the armor plate into their legs. They stumbled, just enough for him to move. He grabbed one by the arm and pulled it forward, driving his elbow into its chest. It fell hard. The last twin tried to spin and cut him, but Kane stepped in close and smashed his fist into its jaw. It collapsed beside its partner. The arena went silent. Kane stood over them, chest heaving. His leg bled where the blade had cut him, but he was still standing. Slowly, the crowd began to cheer. Above, the silver-skinned woman watched him with something like wonder. "You surprise me," she said. "Most men would be dead by now." Kane looked up at her. His voice was rough but calm. "I am not most men," he said. The woman's eyes narrowed. She touched her communicator. "Open the hidden gate," she said softly. The floor behind Kane split apart. A black mist rose, filling the air with the smell of burned metal. Kane turned to face it. Feeling his heart tighten. He knew the next enemy would be worse than any before. But he did not step back. He was ready. The hidden enemy. Black mist poured out of the floor as the hidden gate opened wider. It crawled across the ground like dark smoke, curling around Kane's boots. The cold air smelled sharp, like burned wires and oil. Kane stepped back once, just enough to see better. He watched carefully, waiting for a shape to appear. For a few seconds, there was nothing but fog. Then something moved. He saw a tall figure rising from the mist. Metal plates covered its body. Long cables hung from its arms like dark vines. Its face was hidden behind a smooth mask with no eyes. Only a thin blue line across where a mouth should be. The crowd gasped. Some people stood up to see better. Kane narrowed his eyes. He could hear the quiet hum of power under the armor. This was no simple warrior. This was something built for only one purpose: to kill. High above, the silver-skinned woman watched him. Her bright blue eyes were wide and shining. "This is my strongest creation," she said. "It has no fear, no doubt." Kane did not answer. He shifted his weight onto his unhurt leg. The cut on his thigh still burned, but he ignored it. He could not afford to be slow. Now the machine took one step forward. The blue line on its mask flickered. Then it moved across the arena in a heartbeat, faster than anything Kane had ever seen. He tried to jump aside, but a metal hand caught his arm. The grip was so strong it felt like his bones would crack. He punched the machine's neck with his free hand. The strike made no difference. It lifted him off the floor as if he weighed nothing. The crowd roared with excitement. King gritted his teeth. He could not breathe. He dug his fingernails into the metal fingers locked around his arm, trying to pry them off. The machine's mask tilted, steadying him. The blue line pulsed, almost like it was thinking. Then it threw him. Kane smashed into the far wall. Pain exploded in his ribs. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air. "You cannot win," the woman called. Her voice was soft but cold. "It feels nothing. It will not stop." Kane wiped blood from his mouth and looked up at the machine. "Nothing feels nothing," he said quietly. "Not forever." He forced himself to stand. His arms shook. He knew he could not take many more hits like that. The machine stepped toward him again. Long blades slid out from under its wrists with a metallic snap. Kane took a slow breath. He watched the way the cables on its back shifted when it moved. He saw how the armor plates flexed over the chest and shoulders. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. The machine lunged again. Kane threw himself to the side. The blade sliced the air where his chest had been. He rolled across the floor and came up crouching. The machine turned fast to fast. It kicked him hard in the side. He felt something crack. The pain stole his breath. He crawled backward, using his good leg to push away. The machine came after him, slow now, as if it enjoyed watching him struggle. Above, the woman watched without blinking. "This is the end," she said. King closed his eyes for half a second. He thought of the sky over Earth. He thought of the quiet before a battle. He thought of every promise he had ever made to keep fighting. He opened his eyes and felt calm. "Not yet," he whispered. The machine lifted its blades high. Kane waited until the last moment, then kicked a piece of broken metal up from the floor. It flew into the machine's mask, hitting the blue line. The machine froze, just for a second. It was enough. Kane pulled himself up and rushed forward. He grabbed one of the cables hanging from its back and wrapped it around the machine's neck. The machine thrashed. Its blade swung wide, cutting empty air. Kane held on, using all his strength to pull the cable tighter. Sparks flew from the machine's chest. The blue line on its mask blinked fast, like a warning light. "You feel nothing," Kane gasped. "But you can still break." The machine staggered, trying to throw him off. Kane gripped the cable with both hands. With a loud crack, the cable tore free. Electricity burst out in a bright arc. The machine jerked once, then fell to his knees. Kane let go and stumbled back. He was breathing so hard his chest felt like fire. The machine made one last sound, a deep metallic groan. Then it fell forward, unmoving. The arena was silent. High above, the woman leaned forward, her face pale. How she whispered. Kane wiped sweat and blood from his face. He looked up at her, his voice raw but steady. "Because I am still alive," he said. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the crowd began to roar, louder than ever before. But Kane did not hear them. He was already turning to face the next gate, because he knew this was not the end. The turning point. Kane stood in the middle of the arena, breathing hard. His shirt was torn and stained with blood. Every part of his body hurt, but his mind was clear. He looked around slowly. Pieces of the broken machine lay scattered across the floor. Blue sparks still flickered in the cracks. Above him, the silver-skinned woman did not speak. Her bright blue eyes watched him in silence. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of Kane's heartbeat. Then the woman lifted her hand and touched her communicator. "Bring the last wave," she said quietly. A low alarm echoed through the arena. The far gates began to open. Heavy locks slid back with a deep clunk. Kane turned to watch, his jaw tight. He was tired. He was hurt, but he was not finished. 10 shadows stepped through the gates. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to surround him. Each warrior was different. Some were tall and thin, others heavy and broad. Their weapons glowed in their hands. The crowd gasped and then fell silent. The woman spoke again. Her voice was soft but cold. "You are surrounded by my 10 best warriors," she said. Kane looked at her, his eyes calm. "Good," he said. "I was getting bored." A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. Even the woman looked taken aback. The first warrior charged. It had long claws like curved swords. Kane dodged to the side, grabbing its wrist and twisting hard. Bones cracked. The creature screamed and fell to its knees. Before he could catch his breath, Tamor attacked. One swung a heavy mace. The other thrust a spear at his chest. Kane ducked under the mace and kicked the spear aside. The metal tip scraped his ribs, leaving a shallow cut. He didn't stop moving. He stepped inside the reach of the warrior with the mace. With all his strength, he drove his elbow into his throat. It staggered back, choking. The crowd began to shout again, voices rising in panic and awe. Cain turned to face the next warrior. His vision blurred at the edges. He tasted blood in his mouth. But he kept his hands up, ready. The warrior swung the long blade at his head. He blocked with his forearm. Pain shot up his arm like fire. But he grabbed the blade with both hands and twisted. Metal squealed. He ripped it free and turned the blade in his grip. The warrior hesitated. Cain did not. He thrust the blade deep into its chest. The warrior fell without a sound. He turned again. More were coming. He felt slow now. His arms were heavy. He could barely lift the blade, but he would not stop. The next warrior swung a chain. The metal wrapped around Cain's arm, yanking him forward. He stumbled, falling to one knee. The warrior pulled harder, trying to drag him across the floor. Cain planted his free hand and pushed himself up, inch by inch. He pulled the chain closer, hand over hand. The warrior's eyes widened in shock. With a roar, Cain jerked the chain hard. The warrior stumbled forward. Cain drove his shoulder into its chest, knocking it flat. He tore the chain free and wrapped it around his fist. The next warrior rushed him, swinging twin axes. Cain ducked under the first strike and slammed his chain-wrapped fist into the creature's jaw. Bone cracked. The warrior dropped. He was breathing hard now. Every breath tasted of iron. His vision wavered, but he stayed on his feet. He looked up at the woman above him. Her face was pale. "Is this all you have?" Cain called. His voice was rough but strong. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The last two warriors came at him together. One was tall and thin, moving fast with a curved sword. The other was heavy and slow, carrying a massive hammer. Cain knew he could not fight them both for long. He had to end it now. He turned toward the fast one first. As the curved sword swung down, Cain stepped inside and caught the warrior's arm under his own. He twisted, pulling the creature's body between him and the hammer. The heavy warrior did not stop swinging. The hammer crashed into the thin warrior's back with a sickening crunch. Both fell to the ground. The arena went silent again. Cain stood in the center, chest heaving. His arms hung at his sides. He could not lift them anymore. He looked up at the woman one last time. "Send the next," he said softly. But no one moved. The woman slowly stepped back from the glass. Her eyes were wide in the match. She said quietly into her communicator. The crowd erupted in shouts and cries. The gates closed. The lights dimmed. Cain stayed standing, though every part of him screamed to fall. He had done what no one thought possible, but as he looked at the empty arena, he felt no pride, only a quiet, steady peace. He had fought because he had to, because he was human. And because he would never stop. The last stand, and the end. Cain stood alone in the arena. The lights were softer now, no longer bright and blinding. The crowd's voices faded into a low murmur. He could feel his heartbeat slowing, each thud heavy in his chest. His arms felt like stone. He could not lift them anymore. The cuts across his skin burned with every breath. But he did not fall. High above, the silver-skinned woman stood behind the glass wall. Her bright blue eyes were fixed on him. Why was something he did not expect? Respect. She touched her communicator and spoke in a quiet voice. "Open the gates," she said. Cain frowned. "More?" he called, his voice rough. "No," she said. "You have won." The metal gates unlocked with a soft hiss. The floor rumbled as the lock slid back. Cain waited, but no enemies came, only silence. Slowly, the woman stepped out from behind the glass. She walked across a bridge high above the arena, then down a long stair that led to the floor. Her silver cloak trailed behind her, catching the low light. When she reached him, she stopped a few steps away. "You have defeated all my champions," she said softly. "No human has ever done this." Cain looked at her with tired eyes. "Then let me go." The woman tilted her head. "You do not want a prize. My prize is freedom," Cain said. She studied him for a long moment. Her eyes were less cold, now more curious. "Why did you keep fighting?" she asked. "You could have surrendered. No one would have blamed you." He thought about the question. He thought about the battles he had survived before this, the friends he had lost, the promise he had made to himself long ago. "Never stop, because I am human," he said finally. "Because we don't stop." The woman's lips parted. but no words came for the first time. She looked unsure. When you stood there, she said quietly, surrounded by all 10. I believed you would fall. Kane nodded. So did I. Her mouth curved into a small smile. But you did not. He shook his head. No. She took another step closer. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to understand something she could not see. I'd have fought many wars, she said. I'd have seen many soldiers, but none like you. Kane did not answer. He could feel his body wanting to give in, too, sink to the floor, but he stayed standing. I will keep my word, the woman said. You are free. She raised her hand and pressed a small device on her wrist. A hidden door behind the arena opened, spilling pale blue light across the floor. You may leave, she said. No one will stop you. Kane looked at the door, then back at her. And the others? He asked. She blinked. What others? The other humans you took, he said. Where are they? The woman hesitated. Most did not survive. The ones who did, Kane pressed. She lowered her gaze. They are in the cells. Kane closed his eyes. He felt the ache in his bones, the sharp pain in his side. But when he opened his eyes again, they were steady. Show me, he said. Her brows drew together. You would stay. After all this, I would not leave them here, Kane said. The woman looked at him for a long time. Finally, she nodded. Follow me, she said. She led him through the open door, down a long hall that smelled of metal and old air. They passed empty cells with open doors. At the end of the hall, she stopped and pressed her palm to a panel. The door slid aside. Inside, 5 humans sat against the walls. Their clothes were torn, their faces hollow with hunger. When they saw Kane, their eyes widened. He won. One of them whispered. Kane stepped inside. You're coming with me, he said. The silver-skinned woman did not try to stop them. She watched in silence as Kane helped each person stand. As they walked back through the arena, the crowd was gone. The lights were dim. The only sound was the soft shuffle of tired feet on steel. When they reached the exit, Kane turned back one last time. The woman stood alone in the middle of the arena. Why did you let us go? He asked. She lifted her chin. Because you showed me something I did not believe existed. What is that? Kane asked. The heart that does not surrender, she said. Kane nodded once. He did not smile. There was no need. He turned and led the survivors out into the pale dawn. The air outside was cold and clean. He breathed it in, feeling the pain and the quiet pride mixed together in his chest. He was still alive, and he was not alone. The return home. The sky above was a pale gray when Kane and the 5 survivors stepped out of the arena. The air smelled clean, almost sweet compared to the stale metal inside. The wind touched his skin and made him remember what it felt like to be freed. Out behind them, the arena door slid shut with a low thump. No alarms sounded. No guards chased them. The silver-skinned woman had kept her word. Kane looked at the others. They were thin and weak, their eyes dull with exhaustion. But when the dawn touched their faces, a little light came back into their eyes. Are there ships here? One of them asked in a hoarse voice. We'll find one, Kane said calmly. He knew the woman had let them go, but he also knew this place was not safe. They had to leave before she changed her mind, or before someone else decided to finish what she started. He walked slowly across the flat ground, every step sending pain through his ribs and legs. The others followed, moving in a tight group. Behind him, after a long walk, they reached a tall metal fence. Beyond it, small ships sat in neat rows, their silver hulls shining in the morning light. Kane stopped and looked back at the arena in the distance. It seemed quiet, almost like it had never held so much violence. He turned to the fence and searched for a way through. His eyes found a panel with blinking lights near the gate. He limped over and pressed his hand against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the panel turned green, and the gate slid open. The others stared at him in surprise. How did you know that would work? A young woman asked. Kane met her eyes. She wants us gone, he said simply. They walked into the shipyard. Together, Kane led them to a small transport ship. It looked old, but strong. He touched the side of the hull, feeling the cool metal. This one, he said. The others climbed the ramp without argument. Inside, the air was stale, but clean. Simple seats lined the walls. The lights flickered when he pressed the controls, but they stayed on. He walked to the front and sat in the pilot's chair. The screen in front of him glowed to life. He pressed a few buttons and felt the ship begin to hum under his hands. The engines were weak, but they worked. Strap in. He called Dot. The survivors moved to the seats and buckled themselves in. Kane checked the controls again. Everything looked ready. Dot, as his hand reached for the last switch, he paused. Dot, for a moment, he thought of the woman in the arena. He saw her bright blue eyes watching him as he fought. He heard her quiet voice when she said he had shown her something real. He did not know if she had meant it, but a part of him hoped she had. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. Then he flipped the switch. The ship rumbled and lifted off the ground. Outside, the fences shrank away. The arena became a gray dot on the horizon. Kane looked over his shoulder. The others sat in silence, their faces pale and tired, but in their eyes, he saw something strong, something that would keep them alive. Hope. He turned back to the screen and set a course for open space. The engines groaned as they climbed higher, breaking through the low clouds into the endless dark. We're free, the young woman whispered behind him. Kane did not smile, but his chest felt warm. Double quotes. Yes, he said softly, we are. The stars spread out before them, cold and bright. Kane gripped the controls, feeling every bruise and cut across his skin. But he was alive. And he was taking them home. Hours passed. As they flew, Kane kept the ship steady while the others rested. Sometimes he looked out at the stars and felt small, but he also felt strong. He thought about the arena, about the 10 warriors he had faced, about the machine that almost killed him. He thought about the moment he told her he was not afraid, because it was true. He was not afraid. When the ship finally neared the blue curve of Earth, the others gathered around the front window. Some of them cried quietly. One man pressed his hand to the glass. Kane watched their faces. He felt their relief like it was his own. When the ship broke into the atmosphere, heat flared across the hull. Alarms beeped in warning, but Kane ignored them. The ship held together, shaking and groaning, until the fire turned to blue sky. They landed in an empty field. The engines coughed and went silent. No one spoke as they unbuckled their straps. The hatch opened, letting in the smell of grass and fresh air. Kane stood last. His legs were weak, but they held. He walked out into the light. The others followed, blinking at the brightness. Kane looked up at the sky. He thought of the woman who watched him fight. He wondered if she was still standing in her empty arena, thinking about the human who refused to fall. Maybe someday she would understand why. He hoped she would. The wind lifted the hair from his face. He breathed in, feeling the weight of everything he had. Survived. He was free. And he was not alone.